We wouldn't have to go up to Whipple. This must be rough. Does he bring you back anything, you know? Does he bring you back anything, you know, worthwhile when he goes? Poutine. The other one, poutine.
Except for about trying to avoid it, or is he after?
Yeah.
We try to we've got like 7 cities to go through. You come down with COVID, we will quarantine in a 15-person room. And I was talking to one guy that got caught up in that. Okay. One guy's in there dying. Good thing throwing up. And it's like,
Hello.
We have one more minute and we'll start. Well, it's also going to screw up the microphone, so I'm going to get it off now. It's not too bad in here, is it? All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call this public discussion to order. Tonight, it's not a formal meeting. What we're doing is basically calling the public to discuss the opportunity that has been presented to possibly buy the Hilton House on the corner of Route 85 and Route 87 by the town. Nothing's going to be voted on tonight. There's no formalities here. This board doesn't really have a formal role here, just to keep the meeting organized and going. What we're looking for, as much as describing what is going on with the Hilton House, is as important to get feedback from you. Because at the end of the day, if the town is interested in doing this, we want to make sure that the people in town know what they want to do and are interested in doing it. We don't want to make assumptions here in the board as to what is best for the town without having a conversation with the people in town. So for those of you who are attending tonight, thank you very much. I will encourage you to talk to your neighbors and your friends about this. Anybody can certainly email us at any time or call us at any time. If they aren't able to attend, or if after this meeting you have something pops in your head that you think is important, absolutely let us know. We greatly appreciate it. So with that, I'll do a very informal discussion about the item, and then we'll open it up for a conversation. So, as many of you may be aware, the Hilton Manse on the corner of 85 and 87 has been in the Hilton family basically pretty much since the state of New Hampshire was founded in the early 1600s. The Hilton family moved to Newfield years ago. The town purchased, and the land was mostly donated to the town by the Hilton family, that comprised from the wood line at the field on the corner to the river. And that comprises about 21 acres that the town owns, but there's conservation easement on it. And that parcel has the old Hilton Cemetery. What is the original Hilton family foundation stones are laid out there, or approximately where they were. And the family maintained the field and the Hilton Manse on the corner. As you know, the town utilizes that field quite often, and the Hilton family, the Sellers family, has been very generous in allowing the town to use it for a variety of activities. Recently, though, about 2 months ago? About 2 months ago? I'm leaving to Mary because she knows more. When the house was put up for sale, about 2 months ago, they put the house on the corner up for sale. The house sits on a 3.5 acre lot, fairly L-shaped. It goes along Route 85 for about 400 feet and then back up behind the fire station. So it's about 3.5 acres in that parcel. That's what's for sale. The field is not part of what is being sold at the current time. The house itself has a preservation agreement on it. That was entered into by current owners, the sellers, as well as with the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. The Preservation Alliance is in charge of basically overseeing the preservation of the property, regardless of who continues to own it. And that preservation easement has a lot of restrictions on what can and can't be done to the property. The most significant being the main block of the house, kind of what you see around the chimney, is for the most part not to be really changed. They do allow somebody to come in and do like an addition or something off the back. But that main part of the house, especially the first floor, changes to that are restricted. And any changes that the future owner wants to make under the preservation agreement will have to really go before the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance to get approvals to do any changes. The property can't be subdivided, so one of the things that came up was, could the town acquire it and then add to the fire station property behind for any potential expansion? The answer is no. You're not allowed to subdivide the property at all. Can't make changes to the facade really at all. A driveway is permitted, but that driveway is restricted to whatever activity is going on in the home. So if it's for a single family were to move in, they could have a driveway with parking, but you can't. I would imagine the Preservation Alliance would look askance at paving and putting up a big parking area in the back that isn't in conjunction with the use of the property. So those are the major items I think that are in the preservation agreement. With that, do you guys want to comment at all about the property, thoughts about town acquisition?
So, Mike, you've been in there many times. Mike and I had the opportunity to open up to us. We had the opportunity to go in there. The positives I saw in the structure, relatively new look, 25 equipment that around in there. It now has a poured foundation. The buildings have lifted the jack. The new concrete foundation has been poured. There's new collar ties up in the attic. There's jacking up in the attic that they're looking for sagging. And all the floor joists in the cellar have been scaled with pressure treatment to remove sagging on those. And one of the things, a couple of the negatives that come with it, there's no heat except in the fireplaces. There's no insulation in the building, and it's 100 amp electrical service. So the water system has to be shut down in the wintertime, so that the water drains out so the pipes don't break. That pretty much covers that. Oh, one of the things that we did see in there brought to our attention previously is when the roof was leaking, there was some damage to some of the plaster in some of the locations. I had a conversation with a gentleman I know who's a very good sheetrocker and plaster, and he says that's not a big deal to repair. As far as isn't like ripping out a whole bunch of it, it can be blended. They don't use horsehair, even though that's horsehair plaster, but he said if we repair it, you'll never notice it. So that's what I saw on my observation going through. It's about, I'm spending an hour and a half, right around there, just eyeballing. The thing, I had never been in there before, and I was stunned. It's stepping back in time back in 1700. So that's just my observations on the building, is that it is spectacular. If you haven't been in there, it is rock. That's my piece.
So I'll just add to that, there was a new water heater that they had there as well. So, my concerns are more with the ongoing maintenance costs, right? It's not a one-time buy, and even though the house is solid, it's watertight, the roof is good, with the town picking that up, there are going to be ongoing maintenance costs. I think it's something we have to think about for the future. On the con side, on the pro side, I would love to have that house as part of like history curriculum for the 5th grade or something, so they could go in there, tour the house, take a test on it. But I think kind of the conversation that we're having was about preserving that history moving forward, right? Whatever we do now, 20, 30 years from now, who knows what's going to happen, but if we find a way, if you decide to go forward with this, we can find a way to get the kids in town involved and make it part of their learning, and then hopefully in 20, 30 years we'll have somebody who understands it and has respect for the house and we want to keep it going. So, and then the only other thought that I had was, if they were to throw in the field across the street, To me, that would be the selling point, you know, if that, I think I would be all in if that field became part of the deal. Right now it's not. But again, my 2 cents on what I saw, my thoughts.
All right, well, with that, we'd love to hear your questions, concerns, thoughts about what the town might do with the property. Again, this is just kind of an open discussion, nothing formal, so. Yes, Natalie.
One of my concerns,
Do me a favor?
Yeah.
Yes, so, if you can state your name
yes,
before
Natalie.
I'm just saying that's not just for you now.
No.
For everybody, just, because that'll make it easy in terms of the minutes and people can read about it and who said what.
so one of my biggest concerns, is, again, like that maintenance that Mike was talking about. You know, from board to board for the selectmen and just trying to, make sure that that is maintained through, throughout the town's ownership of seeing, Main Street Airport, post office, had some rough days and we had to prioritize. So, it's really just making sure beyond this board, but boards going forward, that is, considered. I think the state would probably have a lot of oversight of that. It might not just come down to the town. That would be my biggest concern with us, is how to keep that maintenance going on board.
Well, I mean, to answer how it would happen, it would end up having to be a budget item for the town. How much that would be, well, I mean, we certainly need terms. But you're talking about maintenance on a 1700 home. We're probably talking something on the order of, I don't know, $20,000 a year, something in that range. And usually if something goes wrong with an old house, it's more expensive than it goes wrong with a new. That being said, it could be less, but yes, I mean, I think the maintenance is obviously an issue that the town needs to consider beyond the $575,000 that you're asking.
Because what would happen if that wasn't prioritized in the town budget? Then where are you left, like in that situation?
Well, 2 things happen. One is it gets more expensive over time. And 2 is, actually under the preservation agreement, I believe the Preservation Alliance could come in and force the town to make repairs, certain repairs. So that's, I think otherwise it falls into disrepair, right? And the town will never get the money that it would do if it decides that it no longer wants to maintain it and decides to sell it.
Yeah, Dave Street, would the public be allowed in ahead of time before any vote was cast? Is there any thought of letting people in?
So right now, it's by showing. There's a showing appointment, right? It's not open. And I think we'd have to make or have a discussion with the owners and realtors, I presume, as to what kind of access they might allow for that. From this town's perspective, from a process, and what you asked raises a process question, which is typically these will end up as a warrant article, right? Which comes up in March. Now, I'm not sure they necessarily want to wait till March, maybe they're patient. But it may come down to, if the town is very interested in this, there is a process in place, and it is a long drawn-out process. It's to hold a special meeting of the town and have the body of the town vote, in essence, we go through a deliberative session and then a second formal voting day about whether the town wants to move forward with the acquisition of the property. So if we don't do it in March, we'd have to do it in that process sometime over the next several months. So getting back to your question, I don't know the answer to it. Do you have any thoughts on that, Mary?
No, I'll be closing up the house next month.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, the pictures are online.
Yeah.
You can go under the,
Okay. Yes.
Tom Roger. Two questions. How much are we talking about? What do they want for the property?
The asking right now is $575,000.
And also, is there any indication, I assume the field is being owned by the Hilton family.
Correct.
Is there any discussion or any possible involvement having including the field in the purchase or the town land?
Yeah. So, I've reached out to the family and asked them that question directly. I haven't gotten anything back. It's been a while. Mary, have you talked to them at all? I didn't think so. So that was actually what I had asked initially, was because knowing that, and I had mentioned to Lucy Bell and the other members of the family in the past, having conversations with them, that if and when they were to ever sell the field, the town would be extremely interested in acquiring the field, and they seem to understand that pretty well. What they've said was that, they are right now not selling the field because it's kind of like their last piece here in Newfields, given the history of the family in the town. But we have made that request of them, and we're waiting to hear if they would do that or not. Other questions? Comments? Yeah, go ahead.
The use of the property, how is that decided, and what would some of the ideas be for the use of that property in the house?
Well, I mean, that's part of what we want to hear from people in town, what their thoughts. I mean, as a town property, right, what could we do with it? Well, presuming we do something that would allow more than, Memorial Day to Columbus Day usage, because there is no insulation and, you have to be careful with water and everything else. Presuming we were to expend some money to make it more usable, the Town Historic Society over there would want to use it. The Garden Club probably would have an interest in utilizing it and maybe, working on the landscaping there as well. Outside of that, immediately, I don't know, could other organizations in town find a use for some of the space there? I don't know.
So would that be something that would come to, if someone had an idea of uses, or would they just come to the selectmen, or would be voted on by the town, like would they use the, what?
No, I mean, typically the select board has the authority to utilize the buildings in town and allow public use for the buildings in town, presuming that, in this case, that it goes along with any restrictions and preservation easement. But the board has that authority. So, for example, let's say the NYAA said, hey, we'd love to use these. It wouldn't have to wait until March and do a warrant article and get a vote of the town. It would be an issue that presumably whatever board is sitting here, there'd be some discussion, maybe they have, a public discussion about it, certainly address it at one meeting, but at the end of the day, the board has the authority to allow that to happen. Much like the board has the authority to allow an organization to come in, for example, we allow the Contradance Group to use town hall every once a month. And those kinds of things don't necessarily require a vote of the town group. Other questions, comments? My God. Oh, yes, you in the back.
I'm wondering in your walkthrough, is it something that would be possible to house some of the town's historical items that have been sort of misplaced over the very many years? Or displaced, I guess, would be better said.
Your thoughts?
I think absolutely. I mean, that would be, a phenomenal place for that. I think somebody was just on Facebook the other day was asking about the eagle that we had out front. And they said
under glass.
This is so under glass. Well, you know, again, not knowing where it is, I mean, I think that might be, you know, a better venue exactly for things like that. And I think that, you know, like Obi said, I was taken aback going into that place. And, you know, I think things like that definitely enhance it.
And because of the winter, summer temperature change, does that make it uninhabitable for those kinds of items, or do you think that it would be still possible to keep?
Gary, there's books, photographs, all kinds of things that are collected for how many generations?
Yeah, there's a humidifier that goes all the time.
Okay.
24/7.
But to your point,
Or a beacon.
I think that if the town is going to house historical artifacts, books and everything else, we probably want to invest a little bit more than the bare minimum for those environmental aspects, if materials are going to be kept there.
So we've talked.
Along with security, to be honest.
Just to follow up on that, we talked a little bit about in our talks of the 175th, raising one of the events to raise money for a historical fund that we'd like to start. Do you see that by doing fundraising and having an account that if we were able to get the home, would benefit that home? Is that something that the town can do specifically for, that one piece of property and historical displays or housing of those items?
Well, I mean, from a budget standpoint, the town could always enact a specific fund that we put money into either regularly or irregularly, specific for that purpose, right? I mean, we have a fire truck fund, we have, a variety of trust funds around town. We have equipment trust funds, we have, there's trust funds for the water department, all kinds of stuff that make the money for those funds designated for a specific purpose.
But if we were to do private fundraising, would that need to go into the budget? Or would that go into a separate fund maybe for the housing of historical items in that?
A privately raised fund would not be anything that the town would have authority over, okay? So let's say that a group of people in town decided to form, the Hilton House Historical Fund and raise private donations into that on either a one-time or on a regular basis. They could coordinate with the town as to what are the needs over there, much like the Friends of the Library. Coordinate with the town as to what are the needs there, but at the end of the day, the trustees of that fund, private fund, would be the, yes, we'll spend money to repair the roof, or no, we'll spend money to do X, Y, and Z if the town wants us to do X, Y, and Z, and will allow us to do X, Y, and Z. The town itself would have no authority over that fund. At the same time, if they were to raise money, they would have no authority over the town making decisions about the property.
In conjunction with the grantee, which is the preservation, which has the
Yeah.
hammer over the property.
Yeah, and that's more of a veto as much as it is anything else, right? They're saying what you can't do, not necessarily what you can do or have to do outside of it.
It would be an amazing, as Mike was saying, educational opportunity for the school to be able to use that space in some kind of way for, say their fifth grade or whatever, some kind of project to educate the kids in town, just the whole history of the town, outside of the buildings, but it's just a huge history.
And Amy, on that, the whole impact of the Hilton family on southeast New Hampshire, dating all the way back to the founding of New Hampshire, you get into it, was stunned the impact that that family has had throughout the history of the state.
When is the house open? So right now it closes when and opens when? When you close down, like, when is it not habitable anymore? When is it not usable anymore?
When you can't stand the cold?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and the reason I'm asking is we're thinking about kids using it. Kids just started school, it's getting cold. Kids come out of school, still can be cold. So I'm wondering about that use. It doesn't sound like it's always going to be 100% practical. Maybe towards the spring, but that's a shot in the dark. So as much as I like that idea, I'm thinking about practicality of making sure that if this purchase happens, that you have a public and fair use of it. And as much as I want to be able to really see the kids doing it, the curriculum is going to be around it, is it going to be, this seems to be something that's a little bit far-fetched right now.
What's school usually up to?
Pardon me?
School usually ends up what, June?
Yeah, at the end of June.
When do you open up there?
May. You have 1 month and June's winding down. So, and I'm not trying to throw stones. I'm trying to be really practical about some of the thoughts that are coming up. Because the kids are going to have 1 month at the end of the year to be able to utilize the space potentially. I mean, that's really asking a lot of that space potentially to be able to plan it, to be able to move forward with it. Other ideas, I love it. But this space just seems to be hindered by its own environment.
Yeah, and I kind of had the same thought. I mean, it was going to be either the first month of school or the last month of school that they're going to have that opportunity to go there. But I mean, as far as the curriculum goes, and as far as, they spend 2 or 3 days going through that and understand that, and field trips can be had over the summer with families or encouraging families to bring kids through during the summer.
That seems plausible.
Yeah, that would definitely.
Hi, I'm Emily Belanger. I'm Harry's daughter. So I've been going to Hilton House for, my entire life. I'm 28, so it's been a while. So one of the things, I'm very involved with a lot of historical preservation things in the area. I'm currently part of the Friends of Fort McClary up in Kittery. So kind of my experience with this whole thing is that there are, as we discussed, kind of private groups that can be formed that can fundraise in addition to whatever the town decides they want to put into the house through any preservation projects or improvements, say putting heat in or making improvements to the building in whatever way, in cooperation with whatever preservation committees, in this case the state, would be involved. One of the things when I first understood this property was going to come up for sale, that was exactly my first thought, is we should use this property to tell the story of Newfields, because to my knowledge, there's not one central place that does the interpretation of the vast history that Newfields has had from 1631-ish to, modern day. And I think definitely part of that is getting schools involved with that space, the people of the town, because it's part of your history, in addition to, the Hilton family. And along with opening up the buildings, the times when we open up the buildings are usually decided by the family. So they use it as a rest spot when they do their traveling. So if they're coming up in May, that's usually when they come, that's when they open the building, not to say if there's restrictions on when we can open it based off of, the weather, if the water is even going to work because it's, too cold. So that's kind of what those times are based off of, just for, but, depending on, if what the building is to be used for, I'm sure that can be reassessed. That's my comment.
Dave again. Has there been any thought regarding the purchase of the building and people in town saying, well, we can't afford that, my taxes are going to go up? Is there any way to put it out on the internet saying, hey, is there a benefactor or 2 or 3 that would be willing to help? Is afraid the total cost for the town.
Are you suggesting that you'll be said benefit?
I'll give something.
It's always an option, right? I think everybody also has to think about this in the context of everything else that's going around in town. We're about to enter budget season. My most favorite time of year. We had a meeting last month about the potential acquisition of the rug property, right? And that's a seven-figure acquisition. We're talking about possibly acquiring this property at, an asking price of $575 plus whatever money we'd need to put in terms of initial, investment or, insulate or heat or just whatever the town's going to do with it. We also talked about at our last select board meeting about the fact that, we may be moving up our time to buy a fire truck. Now, we have a trust fund for that, there's money in that, but again, another big ticket item that we have to fit into the context of our budget and therefore all of your taxes. So it is is another item on the table. I don't think this is our first public discussion about this, really. I mean, we talked about it at the last select board meeting. But, if there is a benefactor out there in the town with a large checkbook, we'd love to talk to them and work with them. But yes, we could go out and, solicit funds publicly.
You don't know until you ask.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Defray some of that cost. Either that or cover some of the initial investment costs that may have to go into to improve the property to make it more usable. Yeah.
Has anybody approached the state on this too? Hilton is very involved in the state level with family goes. And is this for a real monkey wrench, the whole thing? That's a fairly simple purchase, very complex. It's got to be someone in the state is interest in Hilton family.
So, let me answer your second point was I think correct in that if we were to add the state to this, it would get very more complicated and more drawn out. And that being said, it may be possible to go to the state, if we were to acquire it, to go to the state and look for grant money to do improvements on the property from the programs that they have. I'll say this, that New Hampshire doesn't have any really government historical society. The New Hampshire Historical Society is a private organization. I actually sat on their board for 10 years. And the Historical Society actually made it a point not to acquire properties like this because of the ongoing operating maintenance costs for things like this. It's difficult for properties like this to be revenue generating and self-supporting. They really aren't that way. At the end of the day, if a governing body or a nonprofit is going to buy it, it's not because they think that they're going to make their money back, but it's because they see a more important purpose for them with that property than what somebody else might see. So, that the state has really no state-run organization like this, it's just not, for this state, and the way the state government operates, it's not really high on their list for supporting endeavors like this. Most of those things, for example, the Garrison House down in Exeter, that's owned by what used to be called SPINNY, right? Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities. And they own like 20 properties throughout New England, historical, maybe 30. They were the organization to do that because typically the state governments shy away from that outside of the properties that they already own. Other comments? Yes.
Tom Walker. I heard from talking to Sue, that there had been some interest in possibly trying to place into a bed and breakfast.
Sue asked me about that as well last week. Yeah, and it sits in the residential zone, and that zone does allow for boarding. And so, I'd have to check with we'd have to check with the zoning and planning board, but the common sense reading of that basically says, yeah, you could do that. You could do that.
But it sounds like he had also received a call, people that they were discussing it.
Yeah, I heard from one from California.
That's right.
Tom, when I talked to the realtor about getting in, you said he had all kinds of people say, oh, I'm jumping, and then absolutely nothing. So I think they got back and looked at the list of all the covenants, and all the restrictions that are in this 14 pages here, and went, no. So it's going to be a very niche owner. It's not somebody who's going to come in and make it a palace. I mean, that whole first floor is basically off limits. It's been, he said, there's been a fair amount of interest, but nobody's pulling the trigger.
Can we get somehow access to the covenants? I know that it mentions it on the listing, but it is not publicly available. So that I think that would give at least me as somebody in public an idea of what we're getting into with what the use could be.
We'll have to talk to the realtor because they've restricted that to people who have asked for it.
Yeah.
When the house came up, we specifically asked on behalf of the town. But if we can do that, we will do that. But
to make a decision as a part of the public, putting forward ideas is a great idea, but I don't know what the restrictions are.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Right.
What would it take to get this house off the market? Could a down payment be made or a purchase and sales agreement?
Yeah, I would assume it would be a purchase and sale.
Before the town votes at a regular meeting or special meeting.
So we'd have to have it, presuming if the town was interested enough pursuing this, we'd have to have a discussion with the realtor and or the owners about if they would be comfortable with the town buying it, if they were willing to sell it to the town. Recognizing that it may not be until March that the town says we will or will not buy it. Are they willing to take it off the market at that point in time? We can ask. If we were to enter into a purchase and sale, well, yeah, that would take it off the market, much like a normal real estate transaction. But short of that, I'm sure that they're interested in keeping it on the market at least for a little longer to see if there's going to be a buyer. So, to your point, we can ask and have a conversation with them.
How long would it take to get a special town meeting to the quotes?
So I asked Sue about this. It will take, it basically, call it 45 days or so, because we are an SB2 town. And as an SB2 town, we have to go through both a deliberative session and then another session to vote. If we were on a roll town meeting, it'd be a lot easier. Am I correct, Sid? Is it 45 days?
At least.
At least 45.
Did they ever approach the town about purchasing the property or they go directly to it?
They never approached the town formally about putting it on the market.
Okay, so they never tried, they never put out the fact that, that
They did not let the town know. I'm not aware that of any communication from them before they put it on the market. I talked to them 2 or 3 years ago when they were up here in May, and they said, at some point that they were going to think about that, and I had mentioned, the town would definitely be interested in the field, maybe in selling the field, and they said, no, we'll probably just to the house, but that was years ago. but they didn't give us any formal notification. Okay.
If a purchase was approved, and this becomes a public use, what types of things are going to be expected of that building? Meaning fire suppression systems, sprinklers, things along those lines, with covenants, is that even potentially possible?
Well, as an older house, typically they're grandfathered from some of the more modern items like that. And so my assumption is that, you know, things like ADA or modern fire suppression would probably not have to, but don't quote me on that, I don't know. You know, the electrical, there's 100 amps in there. Depending upon what we do with it, would we have to upgrade it? Again, I don't know. And so I think that's all kind of an open question that we'll have to look at as we go forward.
That would be part of like the maintenance, making sure that you get it up to whatever you need to do.
Certainly, you know, are there other things that need to happen to it? Again, as a house like that, probably if we make major changes, a lot more of that will come into play versus if we basically, you know, for the most part, leave it as is. I mean, we could probably go in there and insulate it, but, you know, if we start changing the electrical, we probably have to bring certain things up to code, et cetera. So, I think the more that we do to the property, probably the more those things come into play.
If I may, one of the things, and I don't know when they did the electrical work, but when they did electrical improvements, the electricians had to go into the walls from the outside so they would not impact the paneling boards on the inside. So that's the attention to detail that's been done on this structure. Check and see the electricians go after what. But it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was done 29 years ago. When they did, that was done the same time they did everything else, 29 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Lynn, you were...
Liz, this is a point of interest. I belong to an organization that owns the building of the National Register of Historic Places. It's the old Nottingham Square Schoolhouse, and it was bequeathed to the organization. And it's been a struggle to maintain the funding for this building. But we use the downstairs as a meeting hall and the upstairs as a museum for all the old school desks and basically as a classroom. And the kids come in every year and have class in there in this museum in spring. We allow other organizations to come in and have their meetings there. And the Town Historical Society, we do have one there, is the one who operates the museum upstairs. So they help fund a little bit, but we've done basically very, very little in that building, other than preserve it. We've had to do a couple of major things early on. But other than, you know, re-roofing, we need to be painting right now, so we're working on funding that. But we haven't done a lot to it. But it's used a lot. We haven't had to put fire ventilation systems in it or whatever. So we've kept it very busy. Very seasonal. Yep, it's closed up at the end of October. It's opened up in May.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, right.
What's the value for right now by the town?
What's that?
How much is the value for right now by the town?
So the town just did a reappraisal, so I don't know what the reappraisal is. I can tell you that it's about 450,000, I think, something on that order. The town pulls in about 8,500 in property tax on property. So if the town buys it, we also will not be collecting $8,500 of property tax. So. Oh, David's to make up that for the funds. But yeah, somewhere with the reappraisal, we'll get a new figure on that. But it's, you know, on what you all know right now, it's about 450,000 assessment. appraisal assessment. Yeah.
Debbie Flannery. And I don't want to assume, but are the restrictions on the property set forth by the Hiltons themselves, or?
It's by both the Hiltons and the Preservation Alliance. They both signed as grantor and as grantee the preservation easement. And as part of that, those restrictions follow to anybody who acquires the property.
And are those restrictions set in stone so they can never be changed?
They run for perpetuity. That's why we require.
Yes, well, but
With minor exceptions.
there are exceptions. So, for example, if the grantee, whoever owns the property, comes to an agreement with the Preservation Alliance for that, and the Preservation Alliance agrees to make a change that is changes some of the restrictions in here, that can be done. Grantor and grantee can always change that. I doubt the Preservation Alliance, though, would allow a whole lot of leeway to these, but it is possible.
Who is the Preservation
Alliance?
Alliance?
It's a nonprofit here in the state. They've been around for, I don't know, 100 years maybe. It is one of the, historic groups here in the state. They've taken the responsibility of basically acting as a trustee for these types of historic agreements. And they oversee and monitor the properties, much like SELT does for, the Southeast Land Trust does for the Preservation Alliance does similar work in ensuring that properties with historic easements to them are maintained the right way. Yep. Any other comments? No? Oh, go ahead.
I am very interested in doing this, but only on the basis that it works financially in the town. These are tough economic times, and we're facing a lot of other challenges, including fire truck and drug issues coming up. And like it's been brought up by numerous folks, if we cannot make it work, the benefit of the town, it makes common sense, I can't support it. But when I look at this property, again, I'm stunned looking at it. And this is such a cherished piece of our history that I'd like to see it work, but if we can't make it work financially, I can't support it. So I would like to see us move forward, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, mitigate any potential threats and considerations that could be a problem. And then as we work through that and get to the point where we have something we can present and go, okay, here's how we think we can get this executed. Here's how we think we can do it. What holes in our logic and thought processes do you see, and what suggestions do you have to put that together? And then if we can come together as a town to do that, I'm all on board. But we've got to make it work. We're what, the 8th or 9th richest town in the state, but then we've got people who are working their butt off trying to keep it those roads. So we have to be considerate of that reality and can't just go, hey, that's cool. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at this process. So, but again, it's really cool.
Very well said. It's such a piece of history that, if the town together, it would be amazing. But I think it's just very well said.
Anything else? Well, thank you all for coming out. Thank you very much for your input and your questions. If you have other thoughts, please email us, call us, find us on the street. Love to hear your feedback. Also, as I said before, talk to your neighbors, talk to people around town about it. We'll try to do a little bit of homework on getting maybe some information about what needs to be done in terms of upkeep, ADA, fire, those kinds of items, just so that we're all aware. And then Ray, I'll certainly reach out and see what it would take to take if the town is, if they'd be willing to wait to see what the town thinks about it, maybe take it off the market. We can always ask. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening, everybody.
Oh, you know, I said, what?